Hi, this is Hansa Bhargava. I'm Chief Medical Officer at Medscape Education, and I'm very excited about this topic today. Incredibly important topic. It is about drowning, and I'm a pediatrician myself and a parent. And unfortunately, here's the headliner. Basically, drowning is the number one cause of death for kids age 1 to 4. And most of the drownings, unfortunately, do happen during the summer. We have today an expert on this topic, Dr. Jeffery Brown. Jeff, thank you so much for being here. Is it okay if I call you Jeff? This is
Absolutely, that's fine. Absolutely.
um, Jeff, I wanted to start right off the bat with if you could just let us know, the audience know your background, but then just going to jump into what is the motivation for you to do such great work in this area?
Well, I guess that this is a job that has come my direction, and I have become an expert by forced default in having lost my own 6-year-old son in a drowning incident in North Carolina in 2013. Um, so I guess that I should let you know that my expertise actually has so much to do with unfortunate on-the-job training, also understanding intimately what the legislation in different states, particularly North Carolina in our instance, is, and then share with you a lot of the arguments and discussion points and dilemmas that people face when they're trying to sort out lifeguarding, trying to sort out water safety, and holding all of that up against a firm foundation of common sense. I think that's where the two worlds really do need to collide. I think our lifeguarding situation right now, where there's um, a, a shortfall of applicants and so forth, I think that's going to change. I think we have a lot of economic impact. We have a lot of travel impact. We have a lot of time taken away from COVID impact, and we can get into those things as much as you want to talk about.
Sure.
Um, on the flip side of the coin, just my background in general, I'm a clinical psychologist and a assistant clinical professor at Harvard Medical School, and have been on faculty for, oh goodness, a couple of decades. And I'd still look really young for 20 years. I have to say that, right? Um, at least
Good
that's
for
that's going to
you.
be what I, since you can't see me, that's what I'm going to claim anyway. And I also am the chief psychologist for the Boston Marathon medical team. So I'm very interested in human behavior, also interested in how people can optimize how their brains work and helping them get over speed bumps. A lot of my clients that I see in my practice are folks just like you and me, people from a variety of walks of life that are dealing with trying to get along and optimize and reach their personal goals. And there's nothing more than the pleasure that comes with seeing my clients be successful. That's why we work so hard around water safety, because we want to have a lot of success, and we want to use our brains well to solve a problem that is directly affecting the number one cause that children age 1 through 4 in the United States die, and that's because of drowning. You can't get around that statistic. And that's something that we must take aim at, and we have to take it seriously.
So thank you so much for being so active in this, and also, I know the tragedy that befell you and your wife and your family, and I'm so very sorry, Jeff. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about what exactly happened, just so people can hopefully learn from this?
Sure, sure. We actually, at that time, lived in Massachusetts. I still live here at home in Massachusetts, and we were visiting family in North Carolina for a week. Part of the structure of that week was to include day camp for kids my son Grant's age, and we took him to the first day of camp and let them know that he was not a great swimmer. We were assured that he watched. We were assured he would have supervision. We were assured that he would stay in a particular area where non or weak swimmers would be held during the free swim part of that day, which came at the very tail end of the day. And in short, what ended up happening was Grant wasn't well supervised. He got out of the area. I don't think he was ever really contained in that area where it was the 0 point entry. Grabbed a beach ball, have it on video, smiling big and having a big time. Grabbed a beach ball, only went out into 4 feet of water, but it was just inches over his head. And they only had one lifeguard for about 60 people in the pool. So that's one thing. in working on legislation that we're taking aim at are lifeguard ratios, and then also the certification of lifeguards, people who know what they're doing when it comes to water safety, knowing how to watch for distress, knowing how to implement safety or a rescue in a water safety event. But in this particular situation, Grant was about 7 feet from an untrained person who had her back to the water, talking with somebody on the deck while he unfortunately struggled for 2.5 minutes that we've seen on surveillance, and then succumbed to that for about 3.5 minutes until two other children found him and retrieved his body from the floor of the pool and got the attention of an adult. There's so many things that as people are listening to this are already recognizing that just are wrong about how safety should be implemented. In North Carolina, for example, and you will hear me reference that a lot because North Carolina is on my radar, is on the radar of an exceptional group of experts that I've been working with for a couple of years now to get required lifeguard legislation there. When we have a camp that's offered to the public, and we transfer our supervision of our child to the supervision of other adults, there should be standards that are met around safety if water is going to be involved. And dare I use such a clinical word, but it's a no-brainer. It's an
Yeah.
absolute no-brainer that supervision must meet a certain level. We found through our investigation that one of the things that does compete against the idea of not having certified lifeguards is that camps want to turn a profit.
Yeah.
They want to stay in the black, and therefore it's easier to tell yourself that you're going to have a camp counselor watch the kids in the water, but when you have camp counselors who are in the water playing with the kids or with their back to the water, they're really useless because they are
Yeah.
not implementing any certified training whatsoever. And that's part of legislation that we're taking aim at too, is some basic certification offered by national certifying bodies that will actually help increase the knowledge base of lifeguards.
Yeah, and first of all, I'm so sorry. It's such a devastating story. That's just awful. And I know that physicians and parents alike that are listening in right now are feeling the same way. Um, I just wanted to ask you the lifeguard issue. So, Jeff, in states across the nation, like, are there any laws that actually talk about the ratio of supervision to kids actually in the pool area?
There are a variety of and let me back up and say before I sound slightly critical, I'm so thankful for those states who have taken a look at this and put something into legislation to preserve kids' lives around this. I've often said, and Hans, I've said to you that if we could do something to outlaw just a little bit of childhood cancer, we would pass that law without hesitation.
Yeah.
We're talking about the number one killer of kids, and number one reason kids age 1 to 4 die is because of drowning. But there are ratios. Usually, the national standard that you hear referenced most is one lifeguard for 25 bathers or swimmers.
Wow.
Now, in North Carolina, we know that. Let me back up again and say we know that that ratio is pretty antiquated. In the legislation that we're looking at in North Carolina, we're really actually proposing 2 lifeguards for the first 25 bathers. And the reason for that, again, we're having to hold ourselves against common sense. Common
Mhm.
sense says if you have, and this happened in Grant's case, one lifeguard responded to Grant's drowning event, leaving over 50 other people unsupervised by a lifeguard in the pool. So we
Yeah.
really do need to have 2 lifeguards for the first bulk of swimmers that are in there, particularly younger swimmers, because once that first lifeguard is activated, then there's no supervision for anyone left. The
Yeah.
second reason that that makes sense is that in an event where CPR is necessary to implement, and in Grant's case, again, it was, that the single lifeguard who was CPR trained worked on Grant for about 11 minutes and fatigued. If you have that second trained lifeguard, you're also going to increase the likelihood that CPR fatigue won't be happening. So
Yeah.
there are an assortment of common sense ways of thinking about this. I'm awfully impressed and have been for a long time with the Model Aquatics Health Code that you may have heard about, and the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. These folks look at it from a very scientific and very practical and common sense perspective on lots of things. The Model Aquatics Health Code not only addresses things like lifeguarding and ratios, but also positions of lifeguards and the pH in the water and sanitation. They cover almost everything you can think of to make it simple. We're trying to keep it very simple so we can get actual humans that are certified and trained in water safety to be watching these kids who are there to have fun. The other thing we could be doing in this situation is, in as far as pursuing legislation, and I've said this multiple times, we could actually just try to pass a law that swimming not be a part of a day camp. Now, that wouldn't go over very
Absolutely.
well, but that
Yeah.
would solve the problem as well. So it's really
Yeah.
helpful to get good cooperation from people and encourage people to be thinkers. Our experience has been that many people, again in North Carolina, truly already believe that this law that we're trying to get in place exists. They
Yeah.
think that it makes sense that, well, why wouldn't you have a lifeguard ratio? Why wouldn't you have certification criteria? Why wouldn't you have chairs that are of a certain height? We have, again, everything that I'm talking about. I have to give full credit to some knockout experts that are really good at what they do. Adam Catchmarchi is the president of the National Drowning Prevention Alliance. Maria Bella, a water safety expert. Um, we have Connie Harvey at the Red Cross. We have Alan Korn, who is the attorney who helped implement and write and is re-examining now the Virginia Graham Baker Federal Pool and Spa Safety Act. All of these people are bringing their gifts and talents to the table and offering that, and we are remiss if we don't keep a very open ear to what they have to say.
Absolutely, Jeff. And the thing is that one of the points you made that is really, really important, and as physicians and clinicians, and for the parents that are here, we have to make sure that these child daycare camps, if there is pool time, that the kids are properly protected. It's not something we can assume. And, as advocates for health, I think it's really important for us to all let the parents know that, to kind of remind them of that it is not something that should be assumed. And again, the other option is really, as you said, Jeff, not to have these childcare camps necessarily have full time. So I think that's very, very important. Well, we're running out of time here. Just 1 minute left here, Jeff. Is there anything that you would advise or do? And I know that there's clinicians, but probably parents too. So, what would your parting thoughts be?
Well, my parting thoughts would be like they've always been. If at this point your child is near the water, it's best for you to stay and keep an eye on your child and not trust that a system that you are not intimately familiar with is going to protect your kiddo. So I would
Yeah.
suggest that talking to any camp that you go to. I've had multiple experiences. Grant attended a camp in Massachusetts the month before he drowned in North Carolina, and we got a very different response from them. It was one full of documentation, plans, handwritten things.
Yeah.
We got a lot of different material. The other thing I would say is, if people, particularly folks who are listening in North Carolina, I would love to hear from you directly, either through Medscape or through my website, which is drjeffbrown.com, drjeffbrown.com. I would love to hear from you if you're interested in understanding more about how you can help. If you know legislators, we are still looking at co-sponsors for bills and invited to speak to those folks, people that are involved in camps, people who are getting that gut feeling that common sense really should prevail in legislation. This is bipartisan. We need to sit around and argue around children's safety in the water. This is something that's a no-brainer and something that we can all come together around and make it happen.
No, absolutely. And thank you again for pointing that out. As a pediatrician, I just wanted to point out that be aware of water safety for clinicians and parents. Clinicians, we have that is part of our public health, primary objective to protect our patients. And to that effect, I would say let's go ahead and encourage our parents to get the swimming lessons if possible. So to know that supervision is very necessary in the water with young kids, and that drowning is not noisy. It's actually very quiet. So eyes on the child at all times. Would you agree, Jeff?
Oh, I would agree. And especially now coming out of COVID, where we've had kids who have not had access to swimming lessons for a couple of years,
Yes.
lifeguards have not had access to recertification or their initial
Yep.
training. So
Yep.
we're in a bind. We're in a
Yep.
bind. So
Yep.
we've got to be thinking ahead and have a lot of forethought for
Yep.
our kids and the kids that are in the pool with our kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jeff. We really appreciate all your effort. And to our audience, thank you for attending. If you have any further questions for myself or Jeff, please reach out to us on Twitter. And Jeff, one more time, if you could let them know about your website.
Sure, it's drjeffbrown.com, drjeff.com, and you can reach me right through there very easily, and I'll respond.
Thank you again, Jeff. And thank you to everyone. Till next time, I'm signing off here. Bye-bye.